When a crowd panicked, trust the person who did not. That had been Mara Calder's rule long before the harbor line packed her into carriage 3. Wet jerseys, plastic flags, beer breath, and the sour heat of people pretending they were still having fun. Ash stood tight against her left leg, his harness strap warm under her fingers. She kept one boot angled out, ugly and rude, making a pocket for his paws while fans in blue and yellow sang over each other. They slapped the windows at the blur of platform lights ahead. Metogate came up through the glass. White letters. Hard glare. Is less than #0. 3# is greater than rain on the sign.
What's wrong with the doors?
The train slowed.
Open the doors!
Half the carriage rose too soon.
They're not opening!
Because
Force
people
them
always
open!
rose too soon
we have
when
to
they
get
thought
out!
the world
What's
would obey
happening?
the
Stay
map.
calm.
Oh
A
God,
man
we're
with
all going
face
to die!
paint dragged
No,
a
we fight
backpack
back
from
now!
under his knees.
What's going
A
on?
woman lifted a sleeping boy against her shoulder.
We have to get out!
Someone yelled that this was their stop. The doors stayed shut. The platform kept moving. First, slowly. Then, with that sick little slide that told the body something had gone wrong before the mind caught up, Metogate passed them. The train picked up speed. The carriage broke into noise. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than. Not one sound.
He's here.
A mess of them. Phones came up. People cursed at the ceiling, at the doors, at the city, at nobody useful. A drunk fan laughed too loudly, then stopped when nobody laughed with him. Mara did not look at the doors. Doors lied. Systems lied. Crowds rarely
Staff
did.
only. I'm
She
official.
looked at
Move.
faces.
I don't know
Confusion
you.
came
Back
first.
off. You're
Then
in my
anger.
way.
Then
This
the
is my
quick animal
zone.
math of people counting exits and children and friends. That was normal. Ugly, but normal. 3 men near the volunteer cluster did not do any of it. They stood loose in the crush. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than shoulders, dropping by half an inch. Mouths softening as if a bad bet had just paid. Relief.
Ash, stay
Clean
close!
relief. One wore a green rain jacket
Watch
too
the
plain
spill.
for the night. One had a folded flag under his arm and no interest in the game. The last kept his chin down, using the window as a mirror. None of them reached for a phone. None asked why. Questions were cheap. Prepared men saved them. Ash felt the surge before Mara could move. A wave of bodies leaned toward the vestibule, then rebounded off the sealed doors. Ash lowered his shoulders and pressed into her shin. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than not pulling, not warning, just making himself small under the pressure of shoes and knees and swinging flagpoles. Mara shifted with him. She took a hip against her rib so an older man would not step backward onto the dog. Feet, she said, low enough that only the 2 people nearest her heard. One swore, saw Ash, and shuffled sideways. The dog's cue meant pressure, nothing more. Too many bodies. No safe gap. Still, it changed the picture. The 3 relaxed men had seen the same crowd wave and used it. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than green jacket. Let himself drift 2 handspans closer to the volunteer cluster. Folded flag turned his head away from the doors before everyone else gave up on them. Window glass watched the reflection. Mara caught him catching her. Not a stare. Worse, a small correction, like a man moving a cup away from the edge of a table. He knew she had noticed wrongness, and he tucked that knowledge somewhere useful. Great. So she had gone from passenger to variable in under 30 seconds. Not her finest invisible work. The announcement system crackled. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than. It gave them half a syllable in static. Then died under the chants and complaints. That helped no one. Which meant it helped whoever did not need help. Mara kept her hand flat on Ash's harness. She measured the space between the 3 men, the volunteer lanyards, the next carriage, and the people still filming the closed doors. As if a video would shame metal into opening. She had until the next stop. Maybe less. to learn why a train full of witnesses was more useful moving than stopped. Not a hijacking. Not yet. No demand. No panic push from the calm men is less than #0. 4# is greater than. They wanted the crowd loud and alive. Near the middle of the volunteer cluster, a woman with dark hair and a red lanyard turned. Mara could not separate the phrase from the chanting. Maybe Spanish. Maybe not. The woman's hand went to the plastic badge at her chest. Her mouth opened, then closed hard, teeth catching the inside of her lip. It lasted half a second. Less. But her fear was too private for transit confusion. Too sharp for a missed stop. Green Jacket saw it too. Mara felt Ash breathe against her leg. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than. She understood, with no comfort at all, that the train was not the important thing anymore. Mara moved before Green Jacket could settle the next piece. Not fast. Fast made people look. Fast made frightened passengers decide the woman with the working dog was part of whatever had gone wrong. Frightened passengers were generous like that. They would hand you blame just to have something solid to hold. She let the carriage sway carry her one step toward the volunteer cluster. Then another. Is less than #0. 3# is greater than. She kept Ash tight inside the narrow pocket made by her knee, her shoulder, and one wet duffel bag wedged under a seat. The woman with the red lanyard had looked down again. But not before Mara marked the tremor in her fingers. Fear had a rhythm. This one was not crowd fear. It was recognition fear. Worse, it was the kind a person tried to swallow before anyone else noticed. Around them the chants kept going. Thinner now. Forced by people who wanted noise to mean normal. The volunteers were bunched near the open space between fan groups. Maybe 12 of them. Is less than #0. 3# is greater than. Though only 2 mattered yet. A woman in an event jacket kept counting heads with 2 fingers pressed to each lanyard. As if numbers might restore order. Sacha Moreno, if the badge Mara glimpsed was right. 30-ish. Tired. Competent. Running on the brittle patience of someone who had spent all night telling adults where to stand. The dark-haired woman stayed half behind her. Red lanyard twisted tight in her fist. Green Jacket slid in from the side with a helpful little nod. He opened a path toward the next carriage. Too helpful. Is less than #0. 3# is greater than. Ash saw the body shift before Mara had language for it. A loose space appeared near Green Jacket's shoulder. Clean at first glance. A gift for a handler trying to move a dog. Ash stopped short, weight dropping back, harness tightening across Mara's palm. The gap was not empty. It was pressure waiting to close. A young volunteer with silver face glitter tried to follow the opening. Sasha caught her by the elbow and pulled her back with a hissed, together. Good instinct. Not enough. Dog needs room, Mara said, making her voice flat enough to sound like annoyance instead of warning. She angled away from the gap. That forced the man behind her to curse and step around. Ash came with her, still low, nails scraping once on the rubber floor. The refusal gave her the shape of it. Green Jacket was not blocking the volunteers. That would have been obvious. And obvious was for amateurs in airport novels. He was making the easy path look safer than the crowd. Let the group choose it themselves. Let the loud fans shove. Let the train do half the work. Sasha turned on Mara with instant, practical dislike. Ma'am, you can't push through staff. We have people assigned together. Good. Protective. Rational. Also in the way. Then keep them together, Mara said. Too sharp. She heard it as soon as it left her mouth. Sasha's eyes hardened. 3 volunteers looked at Ash like the dog had caused the misstop personally. A fan near the doors lifted his phone higher, hungry for a simpler villain. Dog lady interfering with staff. Nice. The crowd had found its first draft. Green Jacket lifted both hands, mild as church coffee. We're just giving them air, he said. His accent was local enough. His smile tired enough. Too sanded down. Folded flag had drifted behind the fan group on the other side, boxing the cluster without touching it. Window glass stayed back near the doors, pretending not to watch. The train rocked. A chant broke into ragged claps. Someone spilled beer or soda. Sweet and stale, under the hotter smell of wet cloth. Sacha reached for the dark-haired woman's lanyard. Lena, stay with me. There it was. Is less than #0. 3# is greater than a name, finally. And names were dangerous. Lena flinched at the touch. Then said something quick and wrong. A single frightened phrase that did not match the language Sacha had used. She caught herself immediately. Sorry, I meant I'm here. Her hand went to the badge again. Covering the printed roll, not because it mattered to Mara, but because it mattered to Lena. Mara did not look directly at her. That was the favor she could still afford. She looked instead at the volunteer's shoes, shoulders, elbows. Is less than #0. 5# is greater than. The way the cluster had become 2 clusters without anyone admitting it. 3 interpreters had been guided toward Green Jacket's pretty little trap of a path. Sacha held 4 back. Lena stood between those counts, visible now through no fault, except being afraid at the wrong second. Target category, not target identity. Interpreter, volunteer, language aid, something in that neighborhood. Enough to move. Not enough to accuse. Not enough to say her name aloud again. Ash leaned against Mara's leg, still refusing the shaped space. That refusal cost them time. Fine. Is less than #0. 3# is greater than time, was cheaper than a crushed dog and a panicked witness. Green Jacket watched Mara choose the worse path and smiled less. The train took a curve hard enough to shove the whole carriage sideways. The volunteer cluster folded with it. The easy gap began closing like a hand. The easy gap closed with a kind of patience. That was the nasty part. No shove at first. No grab. No movie nonsense that gave a decent person permission to act. Just wet shoulders and flagpoles and plastic ponchos sliding together as the train leaned through the curve. Sacha kept one hand on Lena's sleeve. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than one hand raised toward her scattered volunteers, trying to make order with her palm. Green Jacket gave ground like a gentleman, which meant he gave exactly the kind of ground that made everyone else step where he wanted. Folded flag coughed into his fist and drifted behind the louder fans. Window glass watched from the door reflection. Mara felt the carriage tilt under her boots. Ash's harness tightened once, low and hard. The dog dropped his weight against her calf as a rolling bag swung too close to his front legs. Pressure cue. Not danger in the fairy tale sense. Not a bad man's smell. Is less than #0. 3# is greater than not a miracle. Bodies moving wrong around a dog who could be broken by one careless foot. Mara shifted her hip before the bag hit him. The bag hit her instead. Square above the knee. The owner muttered without looking back. Fine. Better her than Ash. Lena tried to step with Sacha. But the fan group on her left burst into another chant and lurched right, turning noise into cover and bodies into a slow shove. A man in a blue jersey stumbled too cleanly toward the vestibule. Arms out. Apology already on his mouth. Too early. Good actors never waited for the mistake to happen. They apologized on the way in. Mara saw Green Jacket's eyes flick to the space behind Lena. Saw folded flag angle his shoulder. Saw the little corridor form. Not open. Form. The train did the rest. Lena's red lanyard jerked forward. Sacha lost 2 fingers of sleeve. Hey, Sacha snapped, sharp and scared now. Mara moved into the pressure with her shoulder first. Not a strike. Not a tackle. Just a rude woman refusing to be moved. The blue jersey hit her and folded off. And is less than #0. 4# is greater than. Surprised, there was bone under the coat. He tried again. Or got made to try again. Hard to tell in a crowd that had stopped being a crowd and become equipment. His shoulder came lower this time, driving toward Mara's ribs. Folded flag shifted at the same moment, turning his body so Lena had nowhere soft to land except the route toward the vestibule. Clean. Coordinated. Too clean for accident. Ash almost went under a heel. Mara felt it more than saw it. The tiny change in the harness. The dog, setting low as shoes came down around him, is less than #0. 4# is greater than. She turned her left boot sideways and took the stomp across her instep. Pain flashed white and stupid. Someone's flagstick scraped her jaw. Someone else cursed at the dog. Mara kept her hand flat, not pulling Ash up into worse pressure, just holding the pocket long enough for him to brace. That split her attention. Which was the point? Lena slid another half step toward the vestibule. Mara caught the motion in the corner of her eye and stepped across the line, cutting off the corridor with her body. Her shoulder hit folded flag's chest. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than. His hands came up, empty, clean, offended. A nice public shape. She could have made him fall. She did not. A fall would splash panic through the carriage. Whoever had built this little machine wanted to know what she would spend first. The dog. The witness. Or the crowd. Not here, Green Jacket said behind someone's laugh, soft as a correction. Window glass answered, keep them singing. Not panic. Not blood. So that was part of it. The chant staggered back to life, ugly and forced. Mara stayed between Lena and the vestibule. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than. Breathing through the pain in her foot and the hot press of bodies against her ribs. Sweat. Nylon. Stale heat. Sour beer. Now people were looking. Not at Green Jacket. Not at the helpful path. Not at the man who had apologized before he hit. At Mara. Of course. Woman with dog blocks volunteers on broken train. Nice headline if you had no imagination and liked being wrong. Sasha yanked Lena back and glared at Mara like she might be the threat. Which, from Sasha's angle, was fair enough. Lena's mouth trembled around words she did not say. Ash rose an inch when the pressure eased, then stopped, still tight to Mara's leg. His limitation had bought them one breath and cost Mara her cover. Across the aisle, window glass met her eyes directly for the first time. No smile. No surprise. A recalculation. Green Jacket gave him nothing visible, which said more than a nod would have. Mara had been marked, categorized, and added to whatever little geometry lesson Dorian's people thought they were teaching in Carriage 4. Her phone buzzed against her hip. A hard little pulse under the wet fabric. Only one person from the old readiness list would call instead of text when a train skipped a stop. She pinned Ash close with her knee, kept her eyes on Green Jacket, and answered. Elias Ward's voice came through the roar, clipped and already angry. Mara, tell me you're not on the train that just missed Metogate. Not the conversation, Mara said. The carriage shoved left again. The words came out through her teeth. Elias heard the noise anyway. The chanting. The curses. The wet slap of flags against windows is less than #0. 4# is greater than. He had always been good at hearing the shape of trouble through bad audio. Annoying talent. Are you hurt? He asked. Busy. Mara. The stop was bait, she said. She watched Green Jacket stop pretending not to listen. He did not turn his head. He only let his hand fall from the overhead rail to the shoulder of the nearest volunteer. Friendly. Guiding. Poison in a paper cup. Sacha saw the hand and slapped it away. Good. Late, but good. You need to stop that train, Elias said. No, Mara said. A dozen people shouted the same word for the opposite reason, as the train rocked harder under them. A man near the doors yelled that someone had a dog blocking staff. Someone else repeated it wrong. Then louder. That was how blame moved in a crowd. Cheap, fast, and usually pointed at the wrong person. Elias went quiet for half a second, which meant someone else was hearing him. Or he was choosing words he hated. From here it reads like an abnormal movement with passengers packed past safe comfort. Immediate stop is the clean answer. Maps love clean answers. Mara shifted her shoulder to keep Lena inside Sasha's reach and Ash outside the stomp zone. Window glass moved 2 steps along the doors, using the argument as cover. Folded flag raised one arm and let a chant restart around him. Not leading it exactly. Just giving irritated people something else to do with their mouths.
I have 3 things, Mara said. Give them. First, 3 men relaxed when Metogate passed. Not confused. Relieved. Green Jacket murmured something to 2 fans in matching scarves. Both looked toward Mara at once. Second, they split the translator group without touching it. Helpful gaps, bad pressure, volunteers drifting where they're supposed to choose. Lena heard translator and went still. Sacha heard it too. Her anger cracked into alarm. Third, they're avoiding escalation. No demand. No panic push. No visible blood. They need the train loud and calm. She did not say Lena's name. She would rather chew glass. Elias exhaled once. Hard. That's not proof. I know. It's pattern. It's bodies. Another voice cut in. Female. Cold. Older. Command without theater. Ward, what changes if she's wrong? Pike? Then. Mara had never met her, but the tone carried a whole desk full of consequences. Elias did not answer fast enough. The train gave another hard sway. A fan stumbled into Ash's shoulder. Ash compressed down. Harness pulling tight. Breath rough against Mara's boot. She blocked with her shin and took a knee against her thigh. Pressure trigger. Visible brace. Bad density. The dog could hold low for a moment. He could not read a conspiracy out of sweat and rubber and spilled beer. Anyone who wanted him to was an idiot with a badge or a screenplay. If I'm wrong, Mara said into the phone, you lose time and make everyone angrier. And if you're right? Pike asked. Mara watched folded flag steer the chant with one raised arm, turning irritation into rhythm. Green Jacket used the rhythm to tug another volunteer a half step away from Sasha without looking like he had done anything at all. You stop where they want you and you hand them the person they're sorting out. Pike said nothing. Elias did. Lower now. Category: interpreter or volunteer. Not safe to name, not safe to point at. The delay landed in the carriage before Elias admitted it. Maybe it was only seconds. Seconds were plenty when everyone was pressed too close and nobody trusted the doors anymore. The train did not give them the clean slow down the crowd wanted. It kept moving. Then seemed to hesitate. That hesitation rolled through the passengers like heat. People groaned. Someone shouted that staff were hiding information. Someone else shouted that the dog lady was blocking the way. Green Jacket lifted both hands again. Bland and helpful. She's making it worse. Move the volunteers away from the dog. Not loud. Loud enough. The phrase hopped from mouth to mouth. Changed shape. Became, move them away. Became the dog lady. Lena's shoulder brushed Mara's sleeve. That tiny contact told Mara the woman was shaking. Elias came back with the voice of a man stepping onto thin ice because the fire behind him was worse. I can hold them off an immediate clean stop. Partially. That is not a rescue. Never thought it was. It will make pressure worse inside. It already is. Ash's head turned toward the spilled sweet stink near the floor, then snapped back under a drumbeat that had lost the rhythm and become pure impact. Too much noise, too much scent, too many legs. Mara felt the next problem arrive through the harness before she could name it. If Ash started reading pressure wrong, the crowd would not give them a second chance. Ash's head went down toward the spill. Mara hated herself for respecting it. That was the job, was it not? You did not get to use a dog's body cue when it helped, and ignore it when the room got ugly. The sweet stink had spread under the seats. Soda or cheap fruit liquor or both, mixed with crushed fries, wet denim, sweat, and the hot electrical breath of the carriage. A drumbeat hammered from 2 bodies away. Off rhythm now. Not music, just impact. Ash tightened through the harness and turned toward the mess near the floor. His shoulders lowered. His nose did not hunt so much as lock. Pulled into a dirty little storm of scent and vibration and feet. She shifted left to clear the spill, keeping him from the shoes chopping around it. The crowd took the space she had just abandoned. Elias was still a thin voice at her ear, saying something about timing. But the carriage ate half of it. Useful words died fast in a room that loud. Bodies did the talking. Green Jacket did not grab Lena. He did not have to. The train swayed. The fans braced, folded flag, let the chant roll through his raised arm, like he was only trying to keep people calm. Sacha lunged for Lena's sleeve and missed by a hand. Lena got pushed sideways with 2 volunteers who were not hers anymore, past a man filming the argument, and a woman yelling that staff needed room. That was the hell of it. The spill was real. The drum vibration was real. The stomp risk was real. It just was not the human threat. The environment had dirtied the signal until useful became dangerous. She shouldered between 2 fans before they could close. One of them shoved back on instinct, not malice. She let it turn her instead of fighting it. Fighting made waves. Waves moved Lena faster. "Lena!" Sacha barked, and regretted the name the second it left her. Lena heard it like a shot. She twisted back, saw Mara, then saw window glass near the door reflection. Her face changed, not panic now. Recognition, trying to become silence. Window glass did not smile. He only leaned his head a fraction, listening. "He was there," she said, barely sound. "Before." "Keep moving," Mara said. I translated one line. Lena whispered, "Too fast, too precise," correcting herself while fear chewed through the edges. I thought it was routine. They said protected passage. I remember his mouth when he said it. Her eyes flicked down, ashamed of the memory, and angry at herself for having it so late. "The room had green chairs," she added. "A coffee stain on the form table. I remember that stupid stain better than his name. That was not proof. It was not clean. It was a shard in the hand, small and bloody, and enough to make somebody want it gone. Window glass hurt enough. His eyes shifted past Lena, toward Green Jacket. Green Jacket's helpful face went flat. His hand touched a fan's elbow, gentle as weather. The gap behind Lena began to vanish. Mara did not blame Ash. Blame was for people with spare time and safe floors. She had made the choice, followed the cue, lost the angle. Now Lena was outside Sasha's cover. The wrong men were learning she remembered more than she should. Ash pressed back against Mara's leg, still low, breathing harder, his body asking for a pocket the crowd would not give him. Useful, yes. Clean, no. Not in this heat, this stink, this drum-thick crush of legs and flags and frightened adults, pretending they were just annoyed. Mara put herself between Lena and the door reflection. But the line was worse now. Longer, more public. Sasha fought toward them, red-faced and furious. "What did you do to her?" she snapped at Mara, which was rich, but not entirely unfair. Mara kept her voice down. "She walks with me, like hell she does, then stand on her other side." That landed. Sasha's eyes flicked from Lena to Green Jacket, then finally to the bodies closing behind them. Lena stared at the space between Mara and Ash. Then at the hostile faces using the crowd as weather. Staying hidden had failed. The witness had to move. Mara could feel the cost of that decision before she made it. Every eye that already disliked her. Every phone turned the wrong way. Every boot near Ash. Every inch of distance from Sasha's volunteer cover. All of it had become the price of 2 seconds. Paid in public, painfully and fast. Stand on her other side was not a request. Sasha was smart enough to hate that and do it anyway. She wedged herself beside Lena with one shoulder forward. All event staff outrage and real fear. Lena looked smaller between them. Not weak, just newly visible. That was worse. A weak person could disappear into sympathy. A visible person became an object people moved around. Mara kept Ash pressed to her left, away from the worst of the shoes. She pointed her chin toward the vestibule. "We cut through there. It was the shortest route. Ugly but direct. A seam between the carriage and the next pocket of fans." Lena swallowed. "He knows me. He knows you reacted. No, I mean before. I heard him. Not his name. The phrase." Her fingers twisted the red lanyard until the plastic badge turned backward. "Protected passage. I translated a handoff line months ago. It was supposed to be boring. Volunteer rotation, low profile. They told us it was uneventful." She corrected herself, breath hitching. "They said it would be uneventful. Then tonight I saw his mouth say the same words." Mara wanted more, and did not ask for it. More would become story, story would become panic. Panic would do Green Jacket's work for him. "That's enough," she said. It was not, but it was what they had. Mara heard the guilt under it. Interpreter guilt, professional guilt. The ugly little belief that if you touched the words, you somehow owned what people did with them later. It meant they wanted you bored, Mara said. Lena looked at her, then quick and wounded, and kept moving. A knot of people angry at the missed stop, and angrier at having nowhere to put that anger. Flags hung low. A backpack jammed between knees. 2 men argued over a phone map that had no idea what their bodies were living through. The floor glistened with the spill dragged underfoot. Ash saw the route and stopped. Not slowed, stopped. His weight dropped back through the harness. Shoulders low. Paws planted wide on the rubber floor. Another wave of bodies pressed into the narrow throat ahead. A loose flag snapped across his muzzle. Someone's heel came down inches from his front paw. Mara felt the refusal in her hand, clean as spoken language. Not stubborn. Limit. The route was unsafe for him, which meant it was unsafe for the plan. For God's sake, move the dog, a fan shouted. She's blocking staff again. Another voice added, pleased to have a script. Green Jacket let that one live, of course. He stood 3 bodies away now, not pushing, not commanding, just allowing the crowd to discover the opinion he needed. Mara took one breath, then threw away the fast route. Rook had taught her what heroic pressure could cost a partner who never got to vote. Ash was not going into that vestibule because Mara wanted a cleaner line. Not tonight. We go through the scarves, she said. Satya stared. That's more people. Yes. That's worse. Also yes. Mara turned Lena by the elbow. Firm enough that Lena did not freeze. They moved into the louder fan cluster. Singing still tried to pretend this was a bad travel night, and not something meaner. A plastic horn dug into her ribs. Ash came with her this time, still low, using the pocket she built with her knee and hip. Slower, more public. Wonderful humanity had invented crowds and then acted surprised when they behaved like weather. Lena made her brave mistake halfway through the cluster 1. Got shoved backward and reached blindly for balance. And stepped out of Mara's shadow to catch her wrist. It was decent. It was human. It also put her red badge and frightened face under the carriage lights for everyone who mattered. Stay with us, Lena said. Too loud, voice cracking into the chant. The volunteer steadied. Sasha cursed under her breath. Window glass turned his head. Green Jacket's eyes found Lena cleanly now. No more guessing through bodies. Mara slid across Lena's front. The crowd had an opinion and a target to hang it on. Why is she dragging volunteers? Someone said. Move the dog, another yelled. The train leaned again. Harder. The fan cluster compressed toward the doors. A small body near the aisle slipped below adult elbows. A child. Or just a short kid in a soaked jersey. Suddenly down where knees and bags were moving. His adult reached late. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe somebody had opened that pocket on purpose. Mara could not tell. And that was the trap arriving with teeth. Ash tightened beside her, blocked by legs on both sides. Lena was already reaching again before Mara could stop her cleanly. Lena reached for the fallen kid before Mara could get a clean word out. Not a heroic reach. Not some glowing nonsense anybody would put in a poster. Just a frightened woman seeing a small body under adult knees and moving on instinct. That made her human. It also made her reachable. The kid was half under a soaked scarf and somebody's swinging tote. One sneaker sliding on the rubber floor as the carriage leaned. His adult grabbed air above him, too late, shouting his name into noise that swallowed it whole. The sound went thin and useless under the drum. Ash tightened beside Mara. Boxed in by calves and bags, his shoulders low and harness line hard across her palm. He could not make a path there. Too many legs. Too little floor. A child below the level where people expected danger to be. Mara read that limit in the dog's braced spine. And in the way he kept himself from lunging into a knot of civilians who would trip over him. Then blame him for physics, naturally. Green Jacket saw Lena bend. Folded flag moved at the same time. Not fast enough to look guilty. Fast enough to matter. The whole carriage seemed to breathe inward. Lena caught the kid's jacket and hauled him upward just enough for his adult to hook an arm around him. Good move. Bad angle. Her shoulder came out of Mara's cover. Red lanyard flashing under the carriage lights. Window glass stepped in from the door side. One palm up. Concerned passenger theater. Careful, miss, he said. And the words carried cleanly, because the chant had broken around the stumble. Green Jacket used the pause. He touched Sasha's elbow. The crowd's pressure folded Sasha half a step away from Lena. Uglier this time, built from a child, a late grab, and every decent impulse Lena had left. Mara saw the clean answer. Window glass had overcommitted his balance. A hard shoulder, a hooked leg, one ugly little collision. He would go down into the fans instead of Lena. Simple, beautiful, even. If you were the sort of idiot who forgot the kid was still chest-high to knees, Ash was pinned, Lena would be crushed by the wave that followed. Clean Force loved to send invoices later, so Mara did not take it. She put herself in the bad space instead. Her right arm barred across Lena's chest. Not grabbing, just stopping the next foot of movement. Her left knee stayed wide over Ash's pocket. Her ribs took window glass when he stumbled into her. No punch, no flourish. Just body weight, wet fabric, and bone meeting bone where nobody filming could call it a fight. The impact drove air out of her in a short, ugly grunt. Something pulled under her left ribs, hot and deep. Wonderful. Add that to the foot. For half a second, her right hand went numb. That scared her more than the pain. Losing grip in a crowd was how small mistakes became headlines. Ash braced against her calf, then ducked lower as the adult with the child backed into his shoulder. Mara shifted enough to keep the dog from being folded under. That shift let folded flag brush Lena's sleeve. Lena snapped her hand back and shoved the kid's adult toward Sasha. "Take him," she said, voice cracking but clear. Not cargo, not trained, not clean, but moving. The adult clutched the kid and vanished into the crowd's safer middle. Mara kept her arm up while pain made the edges of the carriage pulse. Every breath arrived smaller than the last. She could still stand. That would have to pass for good news. Elias was still on the line. For once, he had stopped asking for perfect proof. He had heard the impact. The kid's adult, Mara losing breath. Sasha swearing. Green Jacket telling someone to keep calm in that soft, poisonous way. "I believe your read," he said. "Not dramatic. Better than dramatic. Useful. Then don't stop where they expect," Mara said. Barely enough voice for the phone. Pike cut in behind him. Colder and closer now. "That is not an option. It is a risk shape. Call it whatever makes the paperwork feel loved," Mara said. Elias ignored that, which showed growth. "I may be able to give you a slow entry window. Alter the timing, not the outcome. It could break their geometry." A fresh chant started and died immediately as the train's floor changed underfoot. That faint body knowledge of approach before announcement or platform C. Green Jacket's eyes sharpened. He understood enough. Dorian, Mara thought. Because every small machine had somebody counting from behind it, even if the face in front was still wearing green. It can also increase crush pressure at the doors. At the crowd already turning toward the next promise of escape. "Then make it ugly for them," she said. Her ribs answered with fire when she breathed. Elias did not give them salvation. He gave them a worse shape and had the decency not to dress it up. "Slow entry window coming," he said in Mara's ear, each word clipped by chant and metal noise. Pike said something Mara caught only in pieces. Narrow. Mara ignored the parts that did not put air around Lena. Her ribs hated the next breath. Her left foot hated the floor. Ash was still boxed under her knee. Head low, harness line hot in her hand. Lena stood between Mara and Sasha with her shoulders tight, trying not to look at Green Jacket and failing in tiny flashes. The kid and his adult were gone into the crowd's middle. One less body below the danger line. The train changed tone under them. Not an announcement. Not a miracle from a clean room somewhere. Just a subtle drag through the floor and rail that every body felt before every mouth understood. A tremor moved through the rubber floor and up Mara's damaged foot. Her ribs tightened before she could stop them. The crowd leaned toward the doors like iron toward a magnet. Phones rose again. People wanted proof that the world was about to obey them at last. Because doors had become religion. That lean broke Dorian's pretty geometry. Mara saw it happen in the faces before the bodies followed. Green Jacket had been counting on drift. Choice, helpful gaps, volunteers deciding to separate themselves while the crowd gave cover. The altered timing stole the easy lie. Too many people now wanted the same doors at the same second. Quiet sorting became door hunger. Sasha slammed one palm against Lena's back to keep her upright. Folded Flag lost his clean angle and got pinned behind two fans arguing about the platform. Window Glass swore, soft and real this time. Then he looked at Green Jacket and said, "Dorian." Not loud, not dramatic. A name dropped like a tool on rubber soled. Green Jacket's eyes cut to him once. Enough. Or at least a useful noise people used when they wanted him to decide. Dorian did decide. His helpfulness vanished. He moved toward Lena, with no smile left. Hands still open, still public, but the intention finally showing through the skin. He was done letting the train choose for him. That made him faster and easier to read, a miserable bargain. The braking surge hit before he reached her. Bodies slid, shoes squealed on the wet rubber floor. Flags slapped faces. A horn went under someone's heel with a sad plastic crack. The whole carriage folded toward the door seam, then snapped back half an inch when the platform crowd outside pressed the opposite way. Ash braced low, shoulder against Mara's calf, his body making a pocket no wider than a breath. Not permission to pretend the dog had become a wall. She spent it small. Her right arm pulled Lena back half a step. Her hip took Sasha's weight. Her left knee guarded Ash as a fan crashed into her bad side and lit her ribs white. The pocket held for 1 second, maybe less. Enough for Lena to keep her feet, enough for Sasha not to fall. Enough for Dorian's first reach to close on empty air instead of Lena's sleeve. Then the crowd took the space back. Ash's breath came rougher. His ears flattened under the noise. The harness trembled with stress. Mara did not ask him for more. People loved spending brave animals like loose change. She was not people, not in that way. The little buffer had bought a breath and made everybody around them angrier. Elias said, "Approach field is changing now." Mara almost laughed. Which would have hurt and helped nothing. The field was sweat, elbows, bad footing, wet flags, and 100 angry adults discovering that doors were smaller than hope. The platform glare flashed through the windows. Lower and harsher than Metogate had been, a white strip cut by moving shadows outside. No cleared path, no waiting rescue, just another crowd, another pressure system, another chance for the wrong person to be pushed into the right hands. Pike's voice came once, flat behind Elias. No further promise. Good. Honesty. Finally. That rare little endangered species. The train slowed harder. The chant broke apart. Dorian lost the soft extraction he had built. But he did not lose Lena. His crew adapted in the same breath. Window glass shoved with the crowd now, not hiding it well. Folded flag used both arms. Sasha shouted for people to stop pushing, an adorable proposal quickly rejected by physics. The door seam lit. When the doors opened, heat and platform noise punched into the carriage. Dorian stepped through the surge with his hands no longer pretending to be helpful. The platform hit them as heat. And motion before it became a place. The doors opened, and the carriage exhaled people into people, which was less an exit than two weather systems colliding under white lights. Dorian moved through that first surge, with his hands bare and empty. No more helpful passenger theater, no smile left to sand down his intent. Lena was behind Mara's bad shoulder. Ash was inside her left knee, low and breathing hard. The door frame pressed on one side. The platform edge pulled on the other. A bright strip where feet could misjudge space and bodies would forgive nothing. Mara's ribs gave her half a breath. Terrific. Dorian reached not for Lena's wrist, too obvious, but for the space her body needed next. He stepped into it, making himself the path out. Window glass shoved behind him with the crowd. Folded flag was gone from Mara's sight, swallowed somewhere beyond the door stream. That mattered. Missing men were rarely gifts, Dorian said. With me, 2 words. Low, functional. Lena heard them and went white. The platform edge blinked in and out between coats. Too close to Lena's shoes and too crowded for mistakes. Dorian moved like a man who hated chaos but knew how to rent it. He did not yank. He did not grab where a dozen phones could see. He used the door stream, letting the platform shove carry his body close enough that Lena's next step would have to answer him. His left hand stayed open near her elbow. His right hand cut off the return line to Sasha. Mara saw the trap and felt her ribs refuse the speed she wanted. Then Lena did something useful and almost got herself killed doing it. She stopped looking like a frightened volunteer. Only for a breath, her left hand opened at chest level, palm out. The little flat traffic gesture Mara had seen event staff use all night when drunk fans drifted the wrong way. Her right hand caught her red lanyard and twisted it backward, hiding the badge color. To the crowd, she looked like staff controlling a door. To Dorian, for one fatal heartbeat, she looked like a compliant witness trying not to fall. "Edge," Lena said. Sharp enough to cut through the fan roar, pointed past his shoulder at the platform strip. Not a language trick, a body trick. Dorian's eyes went there because he needed her alive and upright. He had to check the edge. Had to keep the cargo he did not call cargo from going under shoes. Mara spent that glance. She shifted Lena towards Sasha and put her own injured side into Dorian's line. Pain grabbed her ribs with both hands. Fine. Pain could wait in line with everyone else. Ash felt the platform surge through the harness before Mara could see the next wave. People behind them pushed toward open air. People on the platform pushed back to reach whoever they had lost. The door threshold became a grinder of shoes, bags, knees, wet flags, and bad decisions. Ash braced low across the tiny line between Lena's legs and Dorian's reach. Not a charge, not a threat, just 70 pounds of exhausted dog making one breath of boundary. Because bodies had closed around him and Mara's knee told him where the pocket was. She used it to drive her shoulder into Dorian's chest without making it a fight the crowd could understand. He caught himself instead of pushing through Lena. That was his weakness. He could not crush her, could not let her fall under the door stream, could not turn a living witness into a public injury. Mara leaned on that truth with all the strength her ribs had not stolen. Dorian's hand closed on her coat instead of Lena's sleeve. His grip was hard, controlled, meant to move fabric and body together without looking like assault. Mara let him have the coat and not the woman behind it. Ash yelped once, short and furious, as a rolling case clipped his flank. That sound nearly made Mara spend violence she did not have. She did not. She got one hand into Dorian's coat front. Not to throw him, only to pin him against the doorframe long enough for Sasha to drag Lena sideways into the platform spill. Lena stumbled, caught herself on Sasha, and stayed on her feet. Free. For now. Dorian twisted, still careful, still trying to keep the scene clean. His care cost him the last inch. He could have shoved through Mara if Lena had been a package. She was not. She was alive, breakable, visible, and suddenly braced with one hand flat against Sasha's shoulder, refusing to be pulled into his line. "Move," Dorian said. Mara did not waste breath on an answer. She had very little left, and was attached to the idea of using it. Window glass saw the line break and vanished into the outward flood, head down, already becoming another wet jacket in a city of wet jackets. Mara marked the escape, and could do nothing with it. Folded flag was gone too, or pretending to be. The network did not end in one door. It never did. 2 event staffers and 3 angry fans collided into Dorian from the platform side, not understanding what they had interrupted. The crowd kept moving, half scared, half irritated, mostly ignorant. A woman yelled about her bag. A man cursed the dog. Someone laughed from nerves and sounded ashamed of it. Ash staggered against Mara's leg, ears flat, breath sawing. His harness trembled under her hand. He had bought the 1 second the bill had arrived. Lena was beyond Dorian's reach. Mara was still standing. Barely, in her ear, Elias was asking for status, then for anything usable, then for one more look. Mara looked down at Ash and knew the answer before she gave it. The first quiet place was not quiet. It was only a corner of platform concrete behind a temporary barrier, close enough to the door roar that the air still kicked with every chant from above Fordio. Proud or stubborn or just confused by the sudden lack of bodies. Resets. His breath came rough. His flank twitched where the rolling case had clipped him. The harness was damp with sweat, rain, crowd heat, and Mara's handprint. Lena was 10 yards away with Sasha and 2 plain event security faces who did not look like heroes and did not need to. One had given Lena a foil blanket that flashed under the lights. Lena clutched it with both hands and kept checking that Mara and Ash were still there. Alive. That was the report that mattered first. Everything else could wait its turn and suffer, as reports deserved. The roar above rolled through the concrete like weather. Nobody on the platform seemed sure whether the danger had ended or merely changed clothes. It did not wait. A command voice wanted Mara's statement. Another wanted confirmation of the man in green. The one window glass had called Dorian before the platform ate him. Someone else wanted to know whether Ash could work the near side while Scent was Fresh Need had a charming habit of arriving before Mercy. Very punctual. Horrible manners. Elias was still in her ear. Closer now, but not close enough to touch the problem. They have one of the outer men, he said. Not Dorian. Not the man from the door reflection. He stopped before making it sound like victory. Sensible man. Growth continued to surprise. Not enough to close it. Mara said. No. Pike came on once, dry as fluorescent hum. We will need follow-on identification if she can tolerate it. Lena looked over at that exact moment, like she could feel the sentence cross the concrete. Her eyes were open too wide, human-wide. Not witness-wide, not asset-wide, not whatever dead little noun some office would invent by morning. Mara looked away before Lena thought she was being measured. She can breathe first, Mara said. Around them, clipped radios and shoes on wet concrete made an ugly little orchestra of authority, trying to become certainty. Ash tried to rise, when a clipped voice behind the barrier said, "Can the dog sweep the near side?" Not cruel, not even stupid, which somehow made it worse. Ears flattened under the layered noise. A tremor ran from his shoulders, through the harness strap into Mara's palm. The command voice. The platform roar. Mara read the failed rise for what it was. Done. No clean reset, no more tonight. She would make the refusal before anyone turned it into obedience. Mara unbuckled the chest strap with fingers that did not want to close. The buckle stuck once, wet nylon swollen under grit. She worked it free, and slid the harness off before Elias could translate the request into something kinder. Ash leaned into her knee as the weight came away. Without the harness he looked smaller. Not lesser, just himself. Which was an expensive distinction humans kept forgetting to budget for. She set it across her thighs. A line nobody else got to cross tonight. Elias arrived looking older than his voice and angry in the direction of himself. He stopped outside the little barrier, instead of stepping over it. Pike is going to ask why I delayed the stop. Good. I told her it was mine. Also good. He nodded once. No apology. There will be scrutiny. There should be. Lena was moved farther down the protected side of the platform then, blanket around her shoulders. Sacha walking with her like she still had a volunteer group to keep together through sheer spite. Lena stopped once when someone asked a question too quickly. Sacha stepped between them before Mara had to stand. That was useful. Earned, not decorative. Then the crowd above surged into another chant, huge and bright and almost happy, most of them still angry about a delay, a missed stop, a dog in the way. They would never know the shape of what had passed through them. Fine. Knowing was overrated, and usually badly handled. Mara laid Ash's damp harness across her knees. Ash breathed against her boot. Lena was alive. One man was gone. The wider thing waited somewhere past the lights. Day.